Hello, lovely. Today, I'm going to be talking about the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And in fact, I'm going to be talking about it all week and perhaps even a bit further on because there is. I'm only a few chapters in, and so much already that is interesting that I'd like to comment on and that I think might be useful for you. So really, I'm just going to be talking about some of the takeaways from the book and what it means for me and some practical ways that you might be able to incorporate that if it's interesting for you as well. So starting with chapter 1, why not? Seems a good spot to start. And in fact, interestingly today, I found myself very motivated so I spent time last night planning what today would look like, which I normally do on a Sunday, but sometimes I don't, and it definitely makes a difference if I do. And I woke up today and I was just right in it. And I'd like to say I feel a little bit inspired by the fact that we have a new government, because I'm kind of seeing myself as the new government of myself, if you know what I mean. And the current approach of getting in there, getting things sorted, having a plan, that sort of motivated me. So I don't know if anyone else is feeling like that today. There's things to get done, and that includes habits. So we all know habits are important, right? We don't need a book to tell us that. And I guess I'll use as an example for these lives about this habit of going live every day that I'm getting into every weekday. And so I'll try and put things in relation to that so that it makes sense to you. There's a quote in the book, in the first chapter, that I quite like, which says, "Change can take years before it happens all at once." And I think that's a really useful one to remember, that, change just doesn't happen without you generally doesn't happen without you putting in the work beforehand, doing the habits, and doing the habits. And then one day things suddenly look like an overnight success. But that's really hard because, as you're doing the habits, you have no guarantee that there's an overnight success coming. But so the point, I guess, that is very much part of chapter 1 of this book is that it's great to have goals, right? A lot of us set goals, and they are excellent for setting a direction, but it's systems that you need to make progress. So it's hard to make goals or make progress on goals unless you have systems in place. And the trouble with goals is that we don't actually meet them very often. So you might have a financial goal that you're trying to meet, or you want to be able to run a marathon or anything like that. And unfortunately, you only meet those goals every now and again, right? And when you do, you get a little bit of a celebration. And then before you know it, you've set a new goal. So if you're tying your happiness into the goal, then you're really only getting brief glimpses of happiness along the way, which doesn't really seem like a really great way to live. Once in a blue moon, you're always putting your happiness off until you meet that goal, and then you only get to enjoy it for a very short while. So the alternative is to fall in love with the process and the systems. And if you have systems in place that you find that you are able to follow, then you get to be satisfied and happy every single day that you do that, which is much better than only being happy once every few months, once every few years, whatever it is that when you meet your goal. So that's kind of the point of this first chapter of Atomic Habits is recognizing that the goals are fabulous for some direction, but if you're pinning your happiness on meeting those goals, it's going to be pretty few and far between, no matter how good you are. But instead, if you build processes that work for you, then you get to, every single day, be happy because you're doing the processes. So our aim here is to think, how can I be satisfied and happy every day? Because who doesn't want that, right? I think, so one of the ideas that for me is that one thing is to set intentions in the morning. Because if you can set some intentions for the day in the morning, then in the evening, you can say, how did I go with those intentions? And with a bit of luck, you've done 60, 70% of them. If you're anything like me, you never do all of them, which is accepted. I just kind of accept that. So I set those in the day. And recently, so I have a remarkable notebook, but you could just do this in a journal or anything you like. Recently, I've been checking in with those intentions a few times a day. So, I do get up quite early. It's just me. I'm not suggesting that everyone else should do the same. So by about 9 or 10 o'clock, I like to do a check-in because my morning is actually very routine driven. So I want to check that I've done all the things, or if it's gone wrong, why it's gone wrong, to see if I can remedy that for the next time. So I do check-ins during the day. So every time I do a check-in, I get a little dopamine hit, right? It makes me happy. That's great. And then at the end of each day, I have a little list that tells me what things I've managed to achieve that day. And they don't have to be big things. They are the things that are part of my process. And that's you could even have a separate satisfaction journal. You might have a gratitude journal that you fill in the evening. You could have a satisfaction journal that says, you know what, about 80% today. That's pretty good. I'll take that as a win. And again, of course, if it didn't go as planned, maybe there's all sorts of really good reasons why that happened, that the processes weren't followed. But otherwise, you can then sit back in the evening and feel happy, feel satisfied. You do not have to wait for the big goal because you've put those processes in place and that you've made them happen. You have permission to feel happy every single day that you choose to, if you can create the processes that will eventually lead to your goals and allow yourselves to enjoy them. So, Atomic Habits, that's my takeaways from chapter 1, and how I intend to make sure I'm reminded of that and incorporate that in my life every day, setting intentions, having check-ins, and then at the end of the day, allowing myself to feel satisfied and happy that I've done what I can to move forward for that day.